Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your overviews of all of these books coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. What we're looking at here are all of the books that are coming out from Marvel Comics this particular week. And of course, not the Omnis, like Wolverine Omnibus Volume 4 or the Captain America Lives Omnibus reprint. But here we are looking at a new Epic Collection, a reprint of an Epic Collection, another Saga book, which is as thick as the Epics, and a couple digest books and some ongoing series and a mini-series. So, as always, I like to leave timestamps in the description of the video if you want to jump around in case you're curious about one or two titles, or if you want to check out all of them, by all means, check them all out. But don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel, and it's a very small, minute thing you can do. Okay, let's go ahead and kick it off with the Marvelverse KRAVEN the Hunter. The first book we're kicking it off with is Marvelverse KRAVEN the Hunter. So these are the smaller digest-sized books. To kind of give you an idea, here it is, compared to the size of a trade paperback, even though this is an Epic Collection, of course, a lot thicker than most trades. But to kind of give you an idea as to how much bigger this is compared to these digest-sized books. So KRAVEN the Hunter, this is a really interesting collection. I assume because there was supposed to be a movie coming out. That's usually when they release these. And what these books do is kind of catch readers up to speed by showcasing the best stories of these particular characters. However, with KRAVEN, I feel like it's a little bit different because this collects Marvel Action Spider-Man 5 through 6, Marvel Adventures Spider-Man number 7, and Marvel Adventures Superheroes number 4, as well as Spider number 9. And what I mean by that is that they're all out of continuity. They're all continuities of, like, the animated show. They're definitely new reader friendly. Absolutely, you're not bogged down by decades of history. Like, for example, in the first story arc that goes through 2 parts, KRAVEN is he's after the entire Spider family. You've got Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen there, as well as the classic Peter Parker. So that's what he's doing. He's hunting those particular characters down. And then he teams up with Spider-Man to go after the Vulture, again in another story that was not in continuity. And then we have this particular story right here where I think he goes after Deadpool in this. Yeah, this is the Deadpool story from Marvel Adventures Superheroes number 4, where he's hunting after the Mark with the Mouth, which is a very interesting hunt for him. And then we have this particular story from Spidey number 9, which pretty much pits him against Spider-Man again. We have variants all the way in the back. And like I said, it's usually a way for people to catch up with the character by showcasing some of the best stories portraying the character. But this time around, I don't know why they decided to choose all out of continuity stories. Unless you know something I don't. Like, if I don't think Spidey's in continuity. Yeah. But this book retails for $9.99, and it has 120 pages. Speaking of all ages and another digest-sized book, this is Captain Marvel Game On. But this isn't a Marvelverse book. It's not as thin as those books, but it is a smaller scale book, again, to compare it to a trade. The trim size looks like. This one's really interesting because I feel like this is another one that is not in continuity, and please, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, because it feels like this is definitely for all ages, and there's nothing wrong with all ages books. I think they're great. They can be enjoyed by anybody, hence the term all ages, but definitely kid-friendly. So this collects Marvel Action Captain Marvel 1 through 6 from 2019, and then Marvel Action Captain Marvel 1 through 5 from 2021. And it shows pretty much the adventures of Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, and also some of her supporting cast, like Jessica Drew there. This is the story where she is with the Guardians of the Galaxy, because she was part of the Guardians of the Galaxy during this time. I don't know. No, no, she wasn't during this time. She was part of... She had just left Alpha Flight. So yeah, I don't think these are in continuity, because they're not set in the past. This is a cute team up with Hope, the new Wasp, and a team up with Spider-Gwen here against some of the Spider-Man villains and the Mad Thinker. And then there's a team up with Squirrel Girl towards the very end here. That not just pits her against Squirrel Girl, but but other things that are bothering her internally. Stories were fun, and I want to say maybe they were web comics, and but please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if these came out, but based on the covers that they have, the variant covers, they might have come out physically. The book has 240 pages and retails for $13.99. Bishop War College. This is a really interesting book. This is set in the world of Krakoa, so it's the era where the X-Men are living in Krakoa, and you have to be a little familiar as to what's going on. You can't just dive in if you haven't read comics for about 5 years, 4 years even. You might be a little confused as to what's going on, even if you do just want to read about Bishop. But this collects all 5 issues of this miniseries, and it pretty much showcases the character of Bishop, how he's training these new mutants. And you have some of them are classic, like Surge is there, and so is Armor. But then we have newer mutants like Aura Charles or Cam Long and Amass. And he's pretty much teaching them how to be soldiers, like proper soldiers in this army that Krakoa has, because you never know when the enemies are coming. And sure enough, they do come in this particular issue. Now, some of them, of course, some of the X-Men, as always, have issues with the way that Lucas Bishop's trains people, or the way that he treats kids, and it showcases a little bit of his background. This is written by Jay Holtham, sorry, and it is drawn by Sean Damian Hill. And 2 people I'm not really familiar with. I'm not sure what else they had worked on, so if you know, by all means, please let me know. So it showcases, how the kids are dealing with his teachings, but the big thing that happens, and I'm sure the cover kind of spoils this, is that he does have a team up. This is a really cool scene. So the writer really does understand the character of Bishop. So it's not just military. He's a detective. He's a police officer. So he understands how Bishop is supposed to act. Now, this is the Tempo, a character that has appeared in the pages of New Mutants and then later on in X-Force. And it was one of my favorite characters that I wish had joined X-Force a long time ago when Fabian Nicieza was still writing the book. But anyway, during one of their training exercises, they are invaded by 2 very familiar evil mutants, and that is the Strucker twins right there, which we hadn't seen in a little while. Again, if you haven't been reading the Krakoa era, you might be a little confused as to how some of these characters can even be there. Now, during this training exercise, what ends up happening is that Bishop and Tempo are just shucked away somewhere. Meanwhile, his students that he was training have lost their powers. When Bishop wakes up, he wakes up in a different universe, where pretty much the characters of the X-Men are now black characters, as they've always been in this particular universe. Now, that's something that if you've read Exiles, you may be familiar with a universe like this, but I'm not going to spoil that. But the characters that he meets through here, the X-Men that he meets through here, are all black, and he's wondering how in the world he got in here. And of course, he ends up meeting himself too, so he's really confused as to how this Lucas Bishop can even be living here. And in this universe, they also have a council at Krakoa. So this is the story of how Bishop is trapped in that universe. The students, his students, are here trying to figure out how they can find him and Tempo, because Tempo's all gone missing too. So he collects all 5 issues of this miniseries. All the way in the back are where you're going to find the textless covers and the variant covers too. The book retails for $17.99. Hey, Liefeld, and it has 152 pages. That is an awesome freaking picture. You have Larry Stroman's X Factor up there, and then Whilce Portacio's Bishop down there. Because he's the guy that created Bishop, or I guess co-created Bishop. Moon Knight, Road to Ruin. This is volume 4 of the new Moon Knight series that kicked off in 2021. May have to do a Moon Knight reading order one day. So, written by Jed McKay, Federico Sabatini is still doing some of the art in here, as well as Alessandro Capuccio with Rochelle Rosenberg doing the colors, bringing it all together. Now, if you haven't been reading Moon Knight, you might be confused as to what's going on here. But I really have enjoyed what Jed McKay has been doing with the character of Moon Knight and just adding more to his mythos, but also using his different personalities in ways that I hadn't seen in a long time. Now, we kick it off with this. This is in a prison right now where you have Dr. Plesko right here, and he's kind of psychoanalyzing the character of the Zodiac. And Zodiac is talking about how no one does supervillains better than America. There's just something about America and supervillains. Meanwhile, you have the character of Moon Knight and Hunter's Moon. Yes, that is Hunter's Moon. So like I said, if you haven't read the previous volume, now's the time to catch up because, oh, they're so good. So they're just going on a mission out at night. But the big thing to take away from that is their conversation talking about Khonshu's fist and how, you know, sometimes they feel like they're being manipulated, and it's a really cool in-depth conversation. I'm curious if it's going to be explored through these pages or if it's going to be explored through the pages of the Avengers. Regardless, it's a really cool conversation that I do want to see further exploration. But I like both of these characters together. And it's not the first time, you know, Moon Knight has had a sidekick, although that particular sidekick that I'm talking about, well, things did not end the way they should have ended. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because back in the late 80s and early 90s, Moon Knight had an ongoing series that was Mark Spector Moon Knight, which are both omnis are coming out, collecting the entire 60 issues. But it's really interesting that we have these two characters right here going around and murdering anybody that was part of his shadow cabinet, anybody that he helped or they helped him or they were informants from that previous series. They're all being gunned down and he doesn't know why exactly. So Tigra gets involved by rescuing one of them and he's trying to figure out why they're being killed. This is where it gets really cool, because this is where you don't see this very often in the Moon Knight comics, but he's using the character of Jake right now instead of Mark Spector. So Jake is a cabbie in New York City, and that's what he's trying to figure out. He's trying to figure out exactly the route that the killer is taken, and the person that can help him is Jake. So I thought that was really cool that he's using his different personalities like that. We have a flashback with the character of Blade, and this particular Moon Knight from 1977, and it's not Mark Spector Moon Knight. Things have been retconned because, well, whenever you use years in comics, they just get really confusing. But that is still Blade. So, of course, we are talking about vampires again, and some of the vampires that are left over from the previous story arc. And you can find out exactly who is left over from the previous story arc. Then we have the new Enforcers coming after the new Venom. And this is a team-up between Venom and Moon Knight, because Moon Knight is gonna help out this character, this kid, the new Venom, and it's just up against the Enforcers. And these are the new Enforcers, like the Eel or Tangle or the character of Blitz here. And yeah, it's a really interesting team up, but I love the way that Venom is drawn through here. It's just really cool. And then the final issue sets up probably the next story arc, which goes into issue number 25. I assume it's going to be a big celebration issue. Or, like I said, since Jed McKay is writing Avengers, it could lead into that. And here we have some variant covers. This book right here retails for $19.99, and it has 144 pages. Captain America Cold War. Now, to even talk about this particular book, I do have to go into some previous spoilers about what's happening here, what led to this. So if you haven't read the Sentinel of Liberty, or if you haven't read the Symbol of Truth ongoing series, which are both excellent, I highly recommend you to read those, then maybe skip this one if you haven't read those, because I don't want to spoil what happens in those pages for anybody. But I feel like I have to talk a little bit about what's happening in those particular stories to talk about this one. Alright, let's carry on for all those brave souls that don't care about spoilers or have already read the stuff. Alright, so we have Patrick Gleason on the cover of Omega and Alpha. But here we have Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly and Tochi Onyebuki writing the Captain America Cold War Alpha and Omega. And of course, Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly are the writers on Sentinel of Liberty, and Tochi Onyebuki is the writer of The Symbol of Truth. We have Carlos Magno doing the Alpha and Omega, Alina Erofiva doing the art in the Captain America Sentinel of Liberty, and then R.B. Silva doing The Symbol of Truth. So what's happened previously is that Captain America's son, Ian, is back from Dimension Z. He showed up in the pages of The Symbol of Truth. Meanwhile, Captain America has been dealing with the Revolution, otherwise known as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. He has taken over this organization that has been planning things since the beginning of Bucky and Captain America's relationship. They've been planning things not just for heroes, but the entire world. It's how this particular organization works. Now he is calling himself the Revolution, and he's leading the Outer Circle. But he is breaking the White Wolf out of prison. The White Wolf was captured in the previous issues of The Symbol of Truth. So this collects Captain America Symbol of Truth 12 through 13, and Captain America Sentinel of Liberty 12 and 13, as well as Captain America Cold War Alpha and Omega. Now, what does the Revolution or the Outer Circle need the White Wolf for? So this is where things get interesting. So you have the characters of Sharon Carter, who will go through a name change through this very volume here, and then you have Misty Knight teaming up with Captain America Sam Wilson and Captain America Steve Rogers. I love the chemistry between both of these characters, right? It always reminds me of, like, whenever I see them written like this, kind of the Band of Brothers, that you respect the ranking, not the man. I thought that was really cool that they did that, and how it was done on that particular show, based on the book, of course. But the way that Captain America just calls him Captain, and him, Sam Wilson, also calling Steve Rogers Captain. I think that's really cool. Like, I just like the chemistry between both of these characters, and the stories in here are really solid. All right, back to this. So what ends up happening? What's going on? Well, Ian, who had just come back, somehow made it through, I'm not going to go into heavy spoilers, through Dimension Z, gets kidnapped by another character that I can't spoil, that just recently showed up, and he gets taken to the White Wolf. So turns out that they are back in Dimension Z, where he originated from, and they have a big master plan. So now it's up to the two Caps and Sharon Carter and Misty Knight to go and get Ian back. And of course, they have to make it across into Dimension Z to get him back. There's some phenomenal artwork through these pages, and I didn't see the end coming, just like I didn't see the whole thing with Bucky Barnes and Revolution and the Outer Circle coming. I think that's what I like about this run. It's not predictable, and that's what I enjoy about these stories. And like I said, there are some changes for some of the existing characters that are going to happen through these very pages. The book retails for $19.99, and it has 160 pages. Star Wars, STARROS, Family Matters, and that's exactly what this is. This collects the 5-issue miniseries. This is all written by Justina Ireland and Pere Perez doing the artwork. And this showcases what happens to the character of Santa after she leaves the pages of Dr. Aphra, the second volume of Dr. Aphra. And she's just going back and returns to her family. So she's going back home to see her grandmother. But as it turns out, her cousin ended up marrying somebody from the Imperial Army. So that's what's going to start the problems here. Like, she doesn't believe that her cousin has married somebody out of her own free will out of the Imperial Army. And so there's a little bit of family clashing through here. We are introduced to some new characters, and there's some pretty cool and interesting new characters too, like the character of Deva. What is her? Deva, is it Lop? No, Lompop, that's her name. and she's just one of the galaxy's biggest bounty hunters. So not only is she married to one of these Imperial guards, but she's also pregnant with his child. Now, of course, her family believes that she's taken against her will, but is she, or what's going on exactly? Or is she really in love? I love her aunties, by the way. They're both characters. Now, I haven't even talked about the biggest conflict here, and the biggest conflict comes in the shape of her brother. So even though all these things are happening in her family, now she has to go and fight her brother, who is a member of the Empire, and that is Fel. That's her brother's name. So this particular book collects all 5 issues of the miniseries. It retails for $17.99. Let's look at the extras, where we have some of the variants back here. And it has 128 pages. I'm not sure if this will be added to the Dr. Aphra Omnibus Volume 3, but that would be really cool to kind of fatten that one up a little bit. And now it's that time to check out all of the spines of the books coming out this week, as well as a reminder to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And ring that bell for notifications. That lets you know when our videos are going live. Alright, let's get back to the overview. Captain Marvel, the Saga of Monica Rambeau. So this is one of the new Saga books, and they are about as thick, not this one here, but they're usually as thick as the Epic collections. Yeah, they're thicker than trade paperbacks, and they just collect either miniseries or just a couple of maxi series together. This one is really interesting because what this is really is just a reprint of the, what was it called? I think it was just called Captain Marvel Monica Rambeau that came out a few years ago. This is just a straight up reprint because this collects Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16, which of course is her first appearance, and then Avengers 227, 279, Marvel Team Up 142 and 143, the Captain Marvel one-shot from 1989 to 1994, Captain Marvel one-shot, Avengers Unplugged number 5, and then material from Solo Avengers 2, and Marvel Fanfare 42 through 57. So some very important issues that came out in the past. The book has 288 pages and retails for $34.99. And important issues in the life of Captain Marvel. They can't reprint every issue of the Avengers that she's in, but I think they highlighted most of the important ones. So we kick it off with her first appearance, where this is Spider-Man walking down the street, notices this sharp-looking young lady, and he feels like his spider senses are going off because she's about to get mugged. As it turns out, this young lady can take care of herself as she uses these energy beams to push these muggers away, as well as Spider-Man. And we get to find out exactly how she got her powers through a series of flashbacks. We find out that this young lady is Monica Rambeau. Monica Rambeau was a police officer in New Orleans, but she wasn't moving up the ranks despite her being a great police officer. So one day when she's working, this older gentleman, this is Professor Andre Leclerc, shows up and tells her that him and her grandfather used to work together during the war. And they were working on this particular experiment that now, well, Generalissimo Ernesto Ramirez has taken, and it's trying to make it into a weapon. And he's like, maybe you can tell the police to go down there and stop this madness. So what she does is she's like, I'll take care of it. She puts on her bathing suit, and I mean, damn, Monica Rambeau. Woo! I guess I'm a simp like the rest of these guys. I love this plan that she just shows up on this boat where they have this big scientific experiment. It's like a big nuclear weapon they're going to use. And all these fools are like, whoa, that chick is hot, caramba. And they let her in. Like, the plan doesn't get better than that. She just gets in there because she has a skimpy swimsuit. But then they realize that something's going on because they find the professor in there. And the plan is just gone wrong. So what she decides to do is break the machine down. She decides to just smack the crap out of it. And this is where she absorbs all of this power, where she just becomes a Spectrum, if you will, which will come into play later on, not in this collection. But here she decides to go back to the boat to go and help out the professor and take down this army. And you can see a little bit of the type of powers that she's able to use, not just energy beams, but also she can transport, she can phase herself. And it is during this particular rescue mission that one of the people on the boat says es maravilla, Capitan es maravilla, which is very funny because that's how Captain Marvel ended up with his name. Somebody misheard him being called Marvel, and they just humans gave him the name Captain Marvel. Well, in the same way, a news reporter misheard that and just started calling her Captain Marvel, El Capitan Maravilla. And that's her origin story. So Spider-Man is trying to help her because she can't control her powers. Even though the doctor gave her this new costume that is kind of like her old costume that she put together, but this one here is made out of unstable molecules. So Spider-Man tells her that she needs to see the Fantastic Four, but Ben Grimm's like, yo, the Fantastic Four ain't here. Maybe the Avengers can help you, and that's where she goes. And she ends up joining the Avengers, along with her Uncle Raj, in issue 227 here. I don't think I've ever talked about Monica Rambeau on my channel that much. I mean, outside of the review on Old Reader, New Reader that we've done that featured her, like in the pages of Next Wave, but that's years later. But yeah, when I was reading comics, she was the Captain Marvel that was around. And I didn't know any better. I had no idea there was another Captain Marvel before her. She ends up leading the team of the Avengers right here. She's actually designated by Captain America. He's like, you should lead the team, and she thinks about it. So this issue is great, where she's actually going back and visiting family, and she's thinking about her past and origin, drawn by, of course, the legendary John Buscema. But she does decide to lead the Avengers. Now, of course, later on, her powers get taken away. She disappears for a while. So what I'm glad that's collected in here, this is the one-shots, if I'm not mistaken. And the one-shots are written by the late Dwayne McDuffie. And they are great. Like, because it was social commentary for the time, too, that was happening. This one here from 1991, it's the return of the Sons of the Serpent. Characters from the pages of Captain America, and then later on Black Panther. Just racist villains, and of course I'm sure you saw the cover right here. No hate. But you can find out how that story ends. I wanted to talk about this one because I love the fact that this is collected. This is Avengers Unplugged number 5. And this is the character of Legacy, really, Captain Marvel. And both of these characters are calling themselves Captain Marvel during this time. So it's pretty much both of them teaming up at first fighting, and who gets to keep the name Captain Marvel. But at the very, very end of this one is where she decides to choose her new name. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to call myself Photon. Which is funny because when Captain Marvel shows up later on, this Genisfell, in the pages of the Thunderbolt, he starts calling himself Photon. And of course that brings attention to Monica Rambeau. She comes out there and she's like, what the hell's wrong with you? We decided that you were going to be Captain Marvel. And he's like, I don't feel like being Captain Marvel anymore. But anyway, you can find out about that stuff later. Hopefully, I would love to see a big collection of this stuff one day. Again, this book retails for $34.99. This is the history of Monica Rambeau, in case you want to catch up. It's very detailed as to the beginning and then where she is now, including calling herself Spectrum. And it has 288 pages. X-Men Epic Collection, Volume 6. This is the new printing. This is Proteus. So it's been previously released, and I always like to remind people that these books have a smaller print run than the first printing. So keep that in mind if you're at all interested in this. This is some of my favorite era of X-Men. It brings back a lot of memories of trying to find those back issues and just filling in those missing holes. Oh my gosh, including this issue of the Incredible Hulk annual number 7, which of course is the first appearance of Master Mold. So this collects X-Men 111 through 128. Later the title was changed to Uncanny X-Men. It collects X-Men annual number 3. It's the Archon story, and then Marvel Team Up 89, as well as Incredible Hulk annual number 7, which kicks it off. And I always thought when I was a kid and I was missing this particular issue, I thought this was supposed to be Arcade. But it's not. It's somebody else that has taken over the X-Men and made them into circus freaks. And it's up to Beast, coming from the pages of the Avengers, to figure it out. So at the end of that story, I'm not going to reveal who it was behind the scenes, by the way. At the end of that story is one of my favorite stories. And that is when Magneto comes back with a vengeance and kidnaps the X-Men, taking them to his secret lair, fights Wolverine the way you've been wanting to see Magneto fight this particular character since they first fought in the pages of Uncanny X-Men 104, X-Men 104, where he controls his adamantium because he's magnetism, right? But there's a big showdown. He kidnaps them, force feeds them, and you can see Magneto snapping a little bit because of all the experiments that Moira did. And on top of that, he has this character named Nanny who keeps feeding them, who's like a robotic nanny. This next issue, as a kid, I would see it up on the newsstands, and oh my gosh, I always wanted it. And I finally got it. This one means a lot to me. This is the only X-Men comic I actually have signed by Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and Stan Lee, because it just meant so much to me. And it's not that special, right? It's not like the X-Men really died. But as a kid, I would see this at the comic book store up on the top shelf, and I was like, oh, I have to own that one day. So that issue brings back a lot of memories. How it took me years to finally get it. Working in the tobacco fields, I finally saved up enough money to get this particular comic. And it made me a huge fan of Storm. And I'll show you why. Oh my goodness. I think Rob Liefeld owns the original art to that particular issue. Holy Toledo. Woo! Byrne and Austin, man, them curves. All right, what the hell am I talking about? So the X-Men end up winning the Savage Land. As a matter of fact, this is nothing but the X-Men World Tour. They go from the Savage Land. They end up going to Japan. We have this backup story that shows exactly the first fight between Amal Farouk and Professor Xavier. So the Shadow King and Professor X never leaving the table. It is freaking brilliant. So all of this, the whole time, Professor X, Jean Grey, and Beast think the X-Men are dead because there are no cell phones during this time. We have Moses Magnum show up, and it's not until the pages of a classic X-Men issue that you get to find out who souped up Moses Magnum. And you have the Canadian government go after Wolverine by sending out the Guardian. And they want their money back, or they want their Canadian back. But all of this ends up on Muir Island, where Moira is experimenting on Jean Grey, seeing what her new powers are like. You have this fight here with what's his name? That's Arcade. The team up with Spider-Man here with more arcade action. The fight with Archon. Love that character. Very Conan the Barbarian, drawn by the legendary George Perez. And then the Proteus saga. My gosh, it's just one wonderful story after another. The one mutant that Wolverine was scared of. This is an amazing scene where Wolverine has a fear of fighting him. So there's fear in his eyes. So Cyclops has to kind of smack him out of it. He has to bring back the team, showcasing the type of leader that he is. This is Proteus. This is Moira McTaggart's son that's able to jump from one human to another, eventually taking over his own father. And it has a horrible, not a happy ending, I'll say that. And then you have the extras, 440 pages. This printing is $44.99. Like the comic reader, I love the new X-Men and the classic X-Men outfits. And then you have original pages here, not just from John Byrne, but also George Perez. Some sketches, there were house ads, and then these are plates, I believe. Yeah, from the 1993 collected editions, and then the Marvel novel series, and the Marvel Masterworks when they were doing them in the trade paperback format. This book right here, I don't know if I needed to say it, but I think I'm going to. Gets my seal of approval. This is this week's pick as to what book to pick up. I mean, I'm sure there wasn't a question when sometimes, although I have picked other books besides X-Men, but this one is just too damn good to skip out on or miss out in case you're an epic reader and you missed out on it the first time around. Last but certainly not least is the latest. Venom is getting a lot of love. This is the latest Venom Epic Collection. Venom Epic Collection, The Madness. This is volume 4. So it's the classic Venom stories. It's weird to say classic Venom stories because now there's a modern Epic Collection. But these are classics from 1990, I assume 93, 94? Yeah, 93, 94. All right. So what is collected in here? Well, it starts off with Iron Man 302. And then you get the few pages of Iron Man 301. Darkhawk 35 through 37, the rematch with Darkhawk, Venom the Madness 1 through 3, Venom the Enemy Within 1 through 3, Incredible Hulk Venom or versus Venom, and then Venom the Mace 1 through 3, Night Watch 5 through 6, and Venom, Knights of Vengeance 1 through 4. The book has 480 pages, and this one retails for $44.99. So we kick off the stories in here with a fight between Iron Man and Venom, and then the rematch with Darkhawk. But it's not much of a rematch, because this time around, he teams up with Darkhawk to go against the Seekers. So we have a new band of Seekers that are coming out. Then we get to something that is really interesting to reread nowadays, especially if you're reading Al Ewing's comics on Venom, and that is The Madness. It is written by Ann Nocenti, and it is drawn by Kelly Jones, John Beatty doing the inks. And it is a very interesting story, and I swear it feels like every one of these Venom issues, the first issues, always had a gimmick cover, like a foil cover or a die-cut cover. This one was embossed, I believe. There's one in here that's glow in the dark. As a matter of fact, this is this one here that's glow in the dark. But they were really cashing in on Venom, because it could have been an ongoing series, but instead they decided we'll just do a mini-series. That way we can just relaunch a new #1 with a gimmick cover and, you know, put a big hefty price tag on it. And people bought it up. I bought it up. But this is the fight between him and the Juggernaut that sends him into the Madness, which is this physical, spiritual, metaphorical place of just existence. And it's really a deep dive into the psyche of Eddie Brock and the creature known as Venom, this symbiote. It's a really interesting read. I think a lot of it, it's an abstract as hell story, and a lot of it gets lost in, you know, that's only 3 issues, and of course some of the art. What they were trying to do, or I think what Ann Nocenti was trying to do, but the art is actually killer. I'm a big fan of Kelly Jones. He's the one that did the Nightfall covers. This one here is The Enemy Within, written by Bruce Jones, Bob McLeod. Changing up his style a little bit, a lot different than he was doing in the pages of the New Mutants. But this teams up the Demo Goblin with Morbius and Venom to stop these little goblins from taking over California. And I want to say this is after Maximum Carnage. I can't remember, but this is the one that had the glow-in-the-dark cover. Issue #1 had this glow-in-the-dark cover that I also had. Gimmick covers, man, they just worked on me back then, and they're bringing them back. This is the team up with, or I'm sorry, the fight with the Incredible Hulk, written by Peter David. And that is not Iron Man, believe it or not. This is the Mace, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so this is the story of the Mace, where Carl Potts comes back to write the character of Venom. And back to this guy really quick. This is not Iron Man. He's just the leader of the Sunrise Society, which is a group of evil people that for some reason chose the name the Sunrise Society. You can't make that up, I swear. It was the 90s, it was weird. But one of their own wants to escape. Oh, and you have the character of Beck coming back. That's right, Carl Potts brought her back. She was the one that appeared in The Madness. And they kind of had a little thing that kind of ended. So it almost becomes a love triangle later on when, what's-her-name shows up, Elizabeth. But this is the Mace right here, who has the, what is it called? The ballistic mace that can turn into different shapes. And they have to fight the Sunrise Society. Here's the team up, but not a team up fully with Nightwatch. They first have to fight, of course, because that's just the way these things are. And this is the Knights of Vengeance. This is another one. Was this an embossed cover, maybe? I can't remember. I was trying to get out of Venom by now. This is the team up with Vengeance. This is written by Howard Mackey, Ron Lim supplying the artwork. But it is the team up with this character, Vengeance, who was from the pages of Ghost Rider. He's a different character than Ghost Rider. And they're fighting these techno-organic beings that are trying to take over the world. Not the Phalanx. And then, of course, the extras in the back. And you even get the little panel from the Silver Sable issue number 30. But the extras are house ads and original pages here. The book, again, retails for $44.99, and it has 480 pages. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which you are picking up, which ones you're hoping that will be collected in an omnibus format. Well, besides the X-Men and Venom, because those have been collected in omnis before. But which of these series you would like to see in an oversized format. This was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Check out our Patreon and Spread Shop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.